own body except for it.
Eunice, when is it going to be my turn?
When I've finished my go, I shouldn't be surprised. He's so rude, that Inspector Margolis, cutting me off like that.
Well, Mother, you were just a teeny bit upset because you were getting everything so wrong.
I told you that all those men calling at the cottage were crooks. Do you remember? I told you that at the time.
Ah, but crime wasn't the only reason she had all those callers, Agnes dear.
Well, what's the matter? Haven't you ever heard of crimes of passion?
Oh, don't be so vulgar. And do stop poking your eye or smear your mascara. All right. Here you go, Robin.
All right, studio. Stand by.
Right, settle down, please, settle down. If you would like to continue, Mr. Temple, on my cue.
Me, yes. Now, of course, everything that I've just been saying could be mere speculation, except for one fact. The handwriting on this note that I received. Could we have the caption now, please? Thank you. Now, there's a certain characteristic about the way that name is written. If you look the horizontal bar through the L, there's only one European language that has this characteristic, and that's Polish. Now, before the show tonight, three of us sitting here received another note. Once again, Lucy Walters was referred to as Lutra Walczak. Now, Lucy Walters' husband, Joseph, is Polish, and I believe that he wrote all of these notes.
This is getting too far-fetched.
If I may just finish.
Haven't you dazzled us enough as it is, darling?
Now, assuming I'm right...
I spent 5 solid months investigating this crime.
Yes, and I believe you came up with the wrong conclusion.
But you haven't got one solid shred of evidence.
Haven't I? Go and talk to the psychiatrist, talk to the handwriting experts.
Really?
Once again, guilty parties alive with controversy. Ladies and gentlemen, if I may at this moment summarize what we've heard so far. Now, we've heard from Mr. Margolis the probability that this crime was committed for money. Mr. Temple, on the other hand, has hinted it wasn't...
No, I'm not hinting, actually. I'm putting forward this theory very seriously.
Mr. Temple is suggesting, then, that Bernard Donnelly could not have killed Lucy Walters because violence was against his nature, and secondly, he was already dead at the time of Lucy Walters' death.
Yes, that's right. For some reason, she deliberately identified the wrong body. No.
She did not.
Who else was in the mortuary at the time?
I was.
And you're sure it was Walters?
Yes.
You have no doubt that the body she identified was her husband's?
Look, Temple, look, let us just assume for a moment that, for whatever reason, Mrs. Walters and I were mistaken in our identification of the body, that the dead man was, after all, Bernard Donnelly.
Yes.
Now, all right. Now, who was it, then, who killed Lucy Walters?
Well,
I suppose we're all absolutely sure that she is dead.
No.
Oh, come on.
Her husband. Her husband. Could he have done it?
Oh, that's ridiculous.
Why?
My dear Miss Armadine, surely you know over 85% of the murders committed in this country happen within the family group.
Well, in your book, the Homicidal Society, you put the number at 68%, Miss Ardrey.
You've read it?
Oh, yes. You see, when I heard you were going to be on this program, I thought well, I never met you, you see. So I thought I'd better read it to see if I could find out what sort of person you were.
And did you?
Oh, yes. And you're quite wrong about Lucy and Joseph Walters, because they loved each other, especially him. He worshipped the ground she trod on. He told me once about their escape from Poland together. It was she who made it all possible, you know. And did you know that there were 3 of them? Lucy's sister came with them, and Joseph told
More
me.
irrelevant information.
Yes, no, I do. Would you excuse me just for a moment? I wonder if we could try and find out a little more about Lucy Walters. Mrs. Godfrey, what was she like? I mean, you must have known her pretty well.
Oh, I mind my business, and I expect others to do the same. Besides, she was very secretive.
Well, what about you, Mr. Godfrey? Did you have anything to do with Lucy Walters?
Oh, yes. She was interested in antiques.
Oh, really? That's your line, isn't it?
Oh, yes, I have my own shop. Bygones and antiques.
Oh, very grand now. My little house suited him well enough for 36 years, and then all of a sudden he ups and leaves me. Sets himself up in business and moves out.
And that would be when?
1965. I remember it very well.
About a year after the robbery, yes?
What exactly are you getting at, Mr. Temple?
I think he's wondering where you got the money so suddenly to start your business.
That was my own money. Every penny of it. As a matter of fact, I won it on the football pools.
The football pools? Yes. Yes, he won £16,000. Wasn't he lucky?
All that money, and I never saw a penny of it.
Well, he did insist that I should take a little, just for allowing him to use my address. Do you understand?
How much?
£1,000.
Pounds.
Oh, such a very generous boy, especially to me. He's been so good to me. Actually, it was Maurice who gave me my lovely new electric alarm clock, you know. Though I did tell him at the time it was very naughty of him to spend all that money on me, because he knows very well, especially
Oh, yes.
anything like that. because he
Excuse me,
knows I
I'm
love
sorry
him.
to interrupt again, Miss Armadine, but there is just one other person I'd like to talk to. I spoke to her earlier on the telephone today. She lives in Canada now. This is Lucy Walters' sister, Galina Busansky. And I believe we're going to talk to her on the satellite link-up, aren't we?
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, at this moment we are going over to Toronto by satellite to talk to Mrs. Galina Wysansky, sister of the murdered woman. Good evening, Mrs. Wysansky. Can you hear me?
Pardon me?
I said, can you hear me?
Oh, that's better. It's okay now.
Good. Well, thank you very much, Mrs. Wysansky, for agreeing to answer some questions for us.
You're welcome.
Mrs. Wysansky, we haven't much time, so I'm handing you over now to Mr. Paul Temple.
Mrs. Wysansky, hello. I believe you received a letter from your sister shortly before she died.
That's right, yeah.
Would you mind telling us what it said?
Well, to tell you the truth, it was a little confused. Like she was in some sort of trouble, you know?
What did she say?
Oh, there was a whole lot about her and Yusef. I don't know, I sort of got...
Oh.
Mrs. Wysansky, we appear to have lost you. It always happens. There we are, yes.
I said I got the impression that she felt very guilty over something. Maybe something she'd done to him. Like letting him down.
You mean recently, since the robbery?
Oh, yeah. I kind of got the impression it was going on all the time. I wrote her about it.
Anything else?
Well, yeah. She said... I don't know, this bit was really confused. Well, I gathered someone was upsetting her. She didn't say who or what about. She seemed, well, sort of frightened to me. You know, like something was going to happen soon. Something real big.
Well, what did you do?
Well, I phoned her and said, did she want to come over for a while? Zbyszek, that's my husband, he wouldn't mind paying the fare.
Yes, I don't imagine that Lucy was particularly short of money at that time, was she, Galina?
Well, no.
And how did she react to your suggestions?
I'm sorry.
Did she want to accept your invitation?
Oh, yeah, she did. Oh, but she said there was something she had to do first, and then she'd be free to come.
And that was the last time you spoke to her?
Yeah.
Just one more question. At any time after the robbery, did you hear from your sister that her husband Joseph had been killed or was dead?
No. No, I didn't.
Well, now, isn't that rather strange? I mean, if he had died in that crash, wouldn't you have been the first person to be told?
Well, I guess so. There's no one else.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So, in those few weeks preceding the murder, someone was frightening Lucy Walters. Now, who was this person? Was it Bernard Donnelly? Was it Joseph Walczak, who, as you've just heard Mrs. Wysansky suggest from Toronto, was in all probability still alive at that time? Or was it someone who, as Mr. Templar suggested, we haven't heard of in the discussion up till now? Mr. Margolis, would you mind telling us something about the night of the crime?
Well, it was a long night for me, starting at about 2 a.m. when I got a telephone call at home from Mrs. Walters.
At home? Why did she have your home number?
Well, she'd complained about this prowler before, and she was alone and scared, I think. Anyway, I was pretty convinced that she was concerned with the robbery, and I thought it was a good excuse to keep an eye on her. I often called round unexpectedly.
So how long were you at the cottage that night?
15 minutes. I left at about 2:30, and I went back home.
He did. I saw him from my bedroom window. I told him I had when he called the next day to talk about it.
Are you usually up and about at 2:30 in the morning, Miss Armadine?
Oh, no. Oh, no, dear, not usually, but I didn't feel very well that night. And so I got up to make myself some hot water and peppermint. You know, it's very good for you when you've got anything, well, I knew to be very good for me.
How could you be sure of the time?
Because I looked at my clock.
What time did you get home?
A few minutes later. I only lived down the road.
Now, what happened then?
Well, about an hour later, I got another call.
It's all right, everyone. Don't worry. It's only an electric bulb.
I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. I knew the moment we came into this place that we were in danger.
Danger from what?
Electricity. Oh, I do so hate electricity. I never use it in the lodge, you know, not unless I really have to.
Okay now, Mr. Dean.
Oh, and these trains that run off
Mr.
electricity.
Margolis, you were
You know,
saying-
they're absolute death traps. Give me the old steam engines every time.
quiet,
What? Oh, dear, has the game